Hey, this is John with the Autistic Pro, and today we're going to be taking a break from our sensory overload series to talk about something that's become top of mind with the COVID-19 pandemic. And so if you've missed the first parts of our series on sensory overload, I'll leave a link down in the description so that you can check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and to sign up for notifications, as well as to share this with people, both people on the spectrum as well as just people who are neurotypical, so that we can start spreading awareness of how ASD affects people in the workplace. And so, as I was saying, with COVID-19, there's really been a change in the way we work, and especially the way we communicate at work. So typically, someone who's on the spectrum is at a little bit of a disadvantage because unlike neurotypical people, there are difficulties with social interaction that someone on the spectrum experiences. So for me, when I go into a meeting face to face, first off, I have a lot of trouble just processing what's said. Everybody has kind of just a limit to what their brain can handle at any given time. And so I think for a lot of people on the spectrum, their brain is taken up with this this big portion of it is taken up by just normal trying to figure out normal things, like just normal social cues, body language, tone of voice, as well as, for me, just trying to process what people say and whatever hidden meanings there might be, all of that. So with that, there's really less room for some of the other things that your brain could be doing, like coming up with ideas and things. And so I also noticed that as I'm talking just in a meeting or in a face-to-face chat, that a lot of times I'll end up talking very slow and deliberate, especially if it's a serious subject. And so that doesn't work so well in a group conversation, for instance, where people may be popping in and out with different ideas and things. And by the time I get to say, what I want to say, the entire group has moved on to some other topic. And so, like I said, that puts you at a disadvantage. And then the same thing really happens on the phone, maybe even more so. I for one hate talking on the phone. It's one of those things that I just have dreaded ever since I was a teenager, and probably earlier, because there's a special etiquette that you use on the phone. You don't have the benefit of seeing like people's reactions, their body language, and all those other cues. So you're working with less information to begin with, and so just trying to gauge what's going on is a lot more difficult. And I've had some pretty horrendous experiences on the phone, including one with my first teleconference that I did where I was leading it with a business partner. My CEO, my director of marketing were both in on the call, but I was supposed to be leading this call, setting up a partnership for some co-marketing. And I get in there and I'm just stumbling over my words left and right, and basically just stuttering at times even, and struggling to even just come up with things like our basic business propositions and things like that. And luckily, my director of marketing, my direct boss, was able to kind of jump in there and rescue me. Otherwise, I would have been completely toast, and it would have been just a wasted meeting. But I know, coming out of that meeting, that my CEO, I'm sure he had some doubts. This was one of the first chances I had to make a good impression, and so it was not a good thing for me. And so that's kind of been the normal way of work up to now. And again, it kind of puts people on the spectrum at a disadvantage. Now, with COVID-19, there's obviously a new way of work, which for a lot of professionals involves working remotely. And so with that comes a lot of new technologies, including Zoom, a lot of people, taking on Slack, Skype, WhatsApp, just a lot of messaging services, and of course email. And what I found is that this actually seems to suit me better, working from home, not only for, the obvious, like being able to avoid the distractions of an open office, but also being able to communicate in a way that kind of eliminates some of those disadvantages that come with face-to-face or telephonic communications. Case in point is email. Email has been really great for me because whereas in a typical conversation, you kind of have to keep up with the pace. The pace, it's asynchronous with email, so you have that think time built in, and no one expects, or typically no one expects to receive it and email back, immediately afterwards. Quickly maybe, but not with the same immediacy as you would with just a face-to-face meeting. And so you have the chance to think out what you're going to say, make sure that you're considering how people are going to take this or that. For me, I get a chance to get feedback from maybe my peers. I'll send a copy to them, see if it's getting my point across, and that sort of thing. Where you really can't do that in a conversation. And so what I've found is that where some of my ideas might have been easier to overlook if they came out in a typical meeting, creating an email thread with the right people and presenting my ideas there, I've had a lot more of my ideas taken seriously, which have actually led to some pretty significant projects and changes in the way some things are done around our company. And so, and a lot of the same things happen with some of the messaging, direct messaging services like Slack, Skype, and so on. There's not the same expectation that you're going to immediately respond. There's some typing time that's involved for everybody, and so it just slows down the conversation to a pace that's a lot more comfortable for me, who has to take that extra time to process. And so that's not to say that there aren't dangers in this more text-based way of communicating. So for me, the one thing that I fall prey to a lot is just being too perfectionistic. So I'll try to craft the perfect message, and a lot of times that perfect message that everybody understands your point of view just doesn't exist. There's always going to be a need sometimes to go back and forth, and so it's easy for me to spend a half hour, maybe even an hour sometimes on an email, whereas in conversation, because there's an expectation of pace, that it would go by a lot faster, and so there's a little bit of lost productivity that comes there. Another danger is just the tendency to say too much and to overdo it, and so sometimes you'll come with these lengthy emails that realistically people are not going to read. Something that gets too long, they get too caught up in their day-to-day, and so they'll end up skimming it and miss out on a lot of important information. So the emails have got to be concise and to the point as well. And then the third danger that I've found is just that kind of going along with that. There's just a lot of room for miscommunication, and that's not just that's something that people on the spectrum deal with. That's just everybody um, everybody has trouble, sensing sarcasm or sensing tone, and intended meanings sometimes get mixed up in email and in text, whereas they wouldn't be so easily mixed up. And I've had instances like I can think of one where I had a coworker get really upset at me for instant message that I was meaning in a totally different way. I mean, he took it as sarcastic when I'm trying to be sincere and direct. So those dangers exist. So anyways, I'd love to hear about how the pandemic has affected your communication at work. So um, go ahead and drop a comment and let me know. Are you an email person? Are you a text person? Are you a Zoom person? Face-to-face person? What kind of mode of communication do you prefer? And if you haven't already, make sure that you hit that like button. It really helps me out with getting a better distribution on YouTube's algorithm. So until next time, I'll talk to you later. Thanks.